for the other traffic to pass by and then merge later on the left. And that is how it was. And the Lord led me all through up to that place where the writings are. The Lord has taken me to Israel. There's not a significant discovery of writings, archaeological writings, that took place in ancient times, ancient Israel. And this is going to be a significant discovery for humanity, for the state of Israel, for the church, and for the whole world. But the writings of Judah, it's written in Hebrew, but the Lord now wrote it for me. It translated for me in English, but into the writing of that time. So the J, almost, the tail of the J goes almost up. You would think it's a D because you almost touches the stroke up there. It's a very beautiful situation that happened. The Lord was reading together with me, was opening and reading together with me. The Messiah is coming, prepare ye the way of the Lord.
Today, June 5th, 2020,
Na leo hii tarehe 5 mwezi wa 6 mwaka 2020,
I give a prophecy alert today
ninapeana
profesia
unabii leo hii
that there is soon going to be a significant discovery in Israel
ya kwamba
Snart kommer
hivi
det vara en
karibuni
viktig
kunaenda kuwa na
upptäckande i
ukumbuzi wa
Israel.
muhimu kabisa kule Israeli
of ancient Hebrew writings about Judah.
Av en gammal hebreisk skrift gällande
They're going to
Juda.
be discovered in Israel.
Det kommer bli upptäckt i Israel.
And the first time I gave this prophecy was June 12th, the year 2019.
Så den första gången jag gav det här profetian, det var 12 juni 2019.
And I give it today, June 5th, the year 2020.
Så jag ger den även idag, den 5 juni år
This is an
2020.
event that has not yet happened.
Detta är en event som inte har skett ännu. Och så kom den 22 juli 2020. Som det här stora profetian gick i uppfyllelse på ett otroligt sätt i Israel. Då arkeologer i Israel hittade under marken den här gamla judiska kungariket.
A significant storage center has recently been exposed at archaeological excavations in the Arnona neighborhood in Jerusalem. The excavation, conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authorities, revealed a site which is unusually large, a structure built of concentric walls. Now, of particular interest, 120 jar handles were found bearing seal impressions containing ancient Hebrew script.
Archaeologists uncovered more than 100 unique seals on jar handles, many stamped with the ancient Hebrew word lemelech, which means to the king or belonging to the king.
למעלה כתוב בכתב עברי קדום אותיות למ"ם למ"כ למלך, ומתחת לסמל מופיעים שמות אחד מארבעה מקומות: חברון, זיף, סוחו או ממשק. תביעה פרטית שנושאת את שמו של משולם אלנתן, אולי היה פקיד חשוב בממלכת יהודה.
This site has revealed a huge host of discoveries.
אנחנו נמצאים בקצה של המבנה הממלכתי מימי ממלכת יהודה. אפשר לראות פה אבני גיר גדולות, מסוטטות. די ברור שכזה מבנה בכזה גודל עם כאלו אבנים זה מבנה ציבורי.
But that's not all. As for the building itself, experts say it likely served as a government activity center during the reign of King Hezekiah at the start of the 7th century BCE. It was used to store surplus food as well as collect taxes, though the site also reveals details of a biblical standoff between the invading Assyrian armies and those of the Judean king.
הצלחנו פה עשרות רבות של ידיעות קטנטנים נושאות ידיעות חותם. חזקיהו יודע שסנחריב הולך להגיע ליהודה ולאחר מכן לצור על ירושלים, ובמסגרת ההכנות האלה למרד הוא חייב לאגור כמה שיותר רוח. למעלה כתוב בכתב עברי קדום אותיות למד למד כף למלך, ומתחת לסמל מופיעים שמות אחד מארבעה מקומות: חברון, זיף, סוחו או ממשק. קביעה פרטית שנושאת את שמו של משולם אלנתן, אולי היה פקיד חשוב בממלכת יהודה.
A significant storage center has recently been exposed at archaeological excavations in the Arnona neighborhood in Jerusalem. The excavation, conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authorities, revealed a site which is unusually large, a structure built of concentric walls. Now, of particular interest, 120 jar handles were found bearing seal impressions containing ancient Hebrew script. Now, earlier I asked Professor Israel Finkelstein, a professor of archaeology at Tel Aviv University, about the significance of this discovery.
Well, it takes us back to the 7th century BC, to late monarchic times, and the finds at Arnona are important because they show the significant growth of Jerusalem and Judah economically and politically, if you wish, and of course from the administrative point of view. So this is the period when Jerusalem and Judah, under Assyrian patronage, becomes a very important player on the scene of the Levant. At that time, Judah was well organized, and it needed to pay taxes to the Assyrian overlords, and they had to collect agricultural output, and wine and oil and things like this, and the seal impressions were impressed. The impressions were put on handles of storage jars, which were used for the collection of taxes, which made it possible for Judah, first of all, to pay the Assyrians and also to conduct an advanced economy in Judah itself.
I am now standing between two of the walls of the major Iron Age structure that we've uncovered.
Archaeologists say the site is one of the most significant recent discoveries from the 8th century BC. That's known in the Bible as the time of the kings in Jerusalem.
The excavation is here in the southern part of Jerusalem. Behind me is the new U.S. Embassy.
Archaeologists say it's ironic that this area served as an administrative center 2,700 years ago, and now it's home to an embassy.
This site has three aspects that are unparalleled. The stamp seals, the monumental architecture, and the stone heap proves beyond reasonable doubt the administrative nature of this site.
Located about 2 miles from ancient Jerusalem, it appears the government managed and stored food supplies for the kingdom here. They also collected wine and olive oil, the tax payment of that time. Archaeologists uncovered more than 100 unique seals on jar handles, many stamped with the ancient Hebrew word lemelech, which means to the king or belonging to the king. The site is dated to a turbulent time when the Assyrian king Sennacherib was trying to conquer the cities of Judah. Still, the excavation shows the site remained active with uninterrupted tax collection. Archaeologists also found human and animal figurines.
The Bible says not to do idol worship, and it repeats it, and the prophets warn about this time and time again. The reason for warning is that they keep reverting back to the idol worship, and it seems like these were very common in every single household.
One of the mysteries is a huge mound of flint stones that archaeologists believe covered a large building. Nearby, workers are uncovering the remains of a wide wall.
These are rooted elements, ancient rooting. of a monumental structure that still exists, maybe to some degree, under the pile.
The discovery came during a salvage excavation conducted before the construction of a new neighborhood.
Where the Lord has spoken with me on this past night, the Lord spoke with me about a major event that is coming to take place. Again, this past night, the Lord spoke with me about a major event that's going to take place on the earth here. I see a very huge explosion. There's going to be a very huge explosion, and I see in that dream the Lord showed me a huge explosion, and in that dream I see a lot of billowing of very black smoke, a cloud of smoke, and that cloud continues to come, billows into the sky and covers a very large area. And again, it looks more like some chemical weapons or chemicals that are going to explode. They look more like chemical weapons. So again, the Lord has spoken with me in a dream this past night. There's going to be a huge explosion, and there seems to be the black dark smoke billows from that explosion, and then chemicals dispersed into the air. The smoke disperses into the air. It looks more like an explosion from chemical weapons or a chemical. But this is going to visit the earth. This is going to happen on the earth. But again, a huge explosion. The smoke that billows from there, that should be dark smoke, very, very thick dark. Like these chemicals. And then that smoke billows. But there's going to be a huge explosion that billows a huge cloud of thick dark smoke, and then the smoke disperses into the air. These are the signs that the Lord, the Messiah, told us about. These are the signs of the great distress that will visit the earth at this hour. May those who have ears listen. The voice of the Lord, He has spoken. And when these things come to pass, you shall know that surely indeed the Messiah is coming. The Lord Jehovah has spoken with me today about coming to 1 o'clock, between 1 and 2. And this is urgent because I see a place. The Lord takes me to a place. There is a complex of buildings in that place. Then all of a sudden, we begin to run. The Lord puts me there. So I run. People are running for their lives. The roof, I thought it's an earthquake. Some people are shouting earthquake. I thought it's an earthquake. And we are running. The walls are falling down and so forth. And however, I see the roof, an explosion through the roof. An explosion through the roof. And as we're running to the next building, from outside we meet a lot of shattering that has fallen, which are very reminiscent of an earthquake. And so that's why we're running, saying, is it an earthquake? So we're running. I was running with everyone in there, saying it's an earthquake. I was shouting it's an earthquake. They were shouting it's an earthquake because we were seeing a lot of glass, a lot of walls have fallen, crumbled, and this building, the roof, big explosion over the roof. That's when again I stopped. I said, is this really an earthquake or this is an explosion? So we're running to the next side, to the next building, it also exploded. We were fearing it's an earthquake, so we're looking for where to hide. I thought it's an earthquake because we were shouting earthquake, earthquake, as we were running and meeting a lot of fallen walls and glass, running to the next side. Then there was an explosion over the roof. A huge explosion over the roof of this building in this complex, in that particular complex, in the dream flowed. I don't know what exploded, but we were running, shouting, and saying, people were saying, earthquake, earthquake. So we were running, very violent. There was nowhere to run to. It was a very dreadful situation. There was really nowhere to run to. We had nowhere to run to because it was all over. As we were running towards the next building, the first main building is where where there was that shaking, violent shaking, and then the explosion, boom, over the roof. When we came out is when we saw the roof explode, either an explosive, and then we are running to the next building, and then meeting all the shattered glass and the stones and everything. Everybody's running. Then realize the next building is also shaking. So this is very big situation of distress. And the Bible speaks very clearly about the distress of this hour. So I see people running. I see very serious emergency. People are running for their lives, but there is nowhere to get to. And the building explodes from the roof on top. Big smoke over the roof. And then as we are running, we meet fallen glass, and so meaning this place has also been shaken out here. And then we are running to the next building, but it's also about to explode or about to collapse. Again, the Lord took me at about 1 o'clock today, and He took me to a place. We were in a building. I could even see some people were sitting there talking. It was a building place. It looked like a big building complex. And then all of a sudden, we began to run, and people were shouting, "Earthquake, earthquake!" So we're running away, and the buildings were shaking and collapsing and what. But when we stepped out, then there was the explosion over the roof, that went up as we were running. So even we feared to go to the next building because there was a lot of shattered glass and fallen walls and what. As we were running to try to go to the next one, which was also about to collapse or about to explode. There is a distress of the hour. This is the distress of the hour. The Messiah is coming. Right now, the Lord is purifying worship. He's purifying the hearts of men, preparing them for the coming kingdom of God. May the Lord bless you. Thank you. Asha.
من هو انفجار هذا صاروخ؟ ليك القتلة بالارض، حفرجيكم القتلة بعد ما حدا قرب عليهم.
Explosion has torn through the Lebanese capital Beirut, killing at least 70 people and injuring more than 3,700. The huge blast at the port sent shockwaves across the city, destroying many buildings and blowing out windows several miles away. Hospitals across the city were quickly overwhelmed. Officials fear the death toll will rise sharply.
Good afternoon. We have breaking news of a major explosion in the city of Beirut, Lebanon. Here's a live look at the smoke over that city right now. The explosion happened in the city's port area, but the blast appears to have done damage throughout the city. The Lebanon as extensive.
Just after 6 p.m. local time on Tuesday the 4th of August, an explosion ripped through Beirut's port. People in Lebanon's capital had earlier spotted a large fire at the port, billowing dark smoke into the air. There were reports that a warehouse containing fireworks had caught fire. And several videos of the scene showed coloured flashes in the flames. Videos from the scene suggest there was one smaller explosion. And then roughly 30 seconds later, this enormous shock. The blast struck with the force of a 3.5 magnitude earthquake. This was the aftermath. Windows shattered in buildings across the city and damaged cars on the roads near the port. This is where the explosion happened. 4 kilometers away, in the St. Mar-Maroon church, a priest and his congregation were taking part in Mass. The explosion was caught on camera 11 kilometers away in the Dabia Marina. The blast was so big that it was heard from the mountains. This video from the town of Brumana, 15 kilometers away, shows how far the shockwave reached. It was even heard and felt as far away as Cyprus, more than 125 miles across the Mediterranean. Aerial shots show the scale of the destruction of the port. It reportedly housed 85% of Lebanon's supply of grain, which was a strategic food reserve. You can see the impact on the Beirut port silos building before and after the explosion. Surrounding the silos were corrugated iron and steel structures that have mostly been destroyed. These satellite images reveal the extent of the damage. This crater was once a warehouse. Now it's underwater. The colossal force was caused by the explosion of 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, a highly reactive chemical which was being stored unsafely in a hangar on the port.
On the eastern edge of the Mediterranean Sea, a colossal explosion ripped through the evening air, leaving towering plumes of smoke rising hundreds of meters into the sky. It was a blast so powerful, the shock wave shook buildings and shattered windows far distant across the city of Beirut. The destruction is on a scale to match, centered, according to witnesses, on the port area. Cars tossed across the highway. Local security sources report many injured and a number dead amid the smoke and debris, and there are fears of others trapped inside the rubble of collapsed buildings.
An earth-shaking blast tore through Beirut on Tuesday, killing dozens and injuring thousands, officials said. The blast, caught on video by those nearby, occurred at the site of a burning
in the port that was on fire, and they weren't able to put it out. A few seconds later, we were flying through the air.
The explosion, described by many as intense as an earthquake, could even be heard and felt as far away as Cyprus. While no group has claimed responsibility for the blast and Israel has denied involvement, Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab swiftly demanded accountability for what he called a catastrophe.
Those responsible will pay the price for what happened. This is a promise to the martyrs and to the wounded. This is a national commitment. The facts will be revealed about this dangerous warehouse that has been there since 2014.
Lebanon's interior minister said initial information indicated highly explosive material seized years ago that had been stored at the port had blown up. The minister told an Arabic TV station ammonium nitrate had been in storage there since 2014. Reuters video journalists captured scenes from the aftermath, residents scrambling to drive the injured to nearby hospitals, already overwhelmed with victims. It was not immediately clear what caused the initial blaze on Tuesday that set off the blast. The site of the explosion could be seen burning and smoldering as night fell. with the death toll expected to rise.
A massive blast in the Lebanese capital of Beirut that sparked an enormous mushroom cloud has killed scores and injured thousands of people. The explosion transformed the city's port area into a wasteland, leveling buildings and cars. The U.S. Geological Survey says the blast created seismic waves similar to a magnitude 3.3 earthquake.
A huge explosion at a port in central Beirut rocked Lebanon's capital on Tuesday evening local time, killing at least 70 people. According to Lebanon's health minister, more than 2,700 people were injured and the death toll is expected to rise. Followed by a huge mushroom cloud, the explosion emitted powerful shockwaves across the city, destroying buildings and shattering windows in different parts of Beirut. The Lebanese prime minister described the explosion, which also damaged the prime minister's headquarters, as a catastrophe.
What happened today won't pass without account. This is a national commitment. Facts will be revealed about this dangerous warehouse that has been there since 2014.
The exact cause of the blast is not yet clear, but Lebanon's interior security chief said ammonium nitrate, which is highly explosive, may have been stored in a warehouse at the port. Also, the country's news agency reported a major fire broke out at the port depot before the blast, and firefighting crew had rushed to the scene to try and put it out. A White House official says President Trump has been briefed on the explosion, and the White House and U.S. State Department are continuing to closely monitor the situation. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut urged people in the affected area to wear masks if available, as there have been reports of toxic gas releases from the blast.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Oh my God.
There was a massive explosion. I mean, something that really shook this city like I've never seen before. And I've been through wars here in Lebanon, and this is something unheard of.
Let's get straight to it with our Ben Wiedemann, who's standing by at the Bureau, which has also not escaped the aftershocks. Ben.
That explosion, Christian, happened just a few minutes after 6 p.m. local time. That's about 3 hours ago. I was in the CNN Bureau here in downtown Beirut. Initially, it felt like an earthquake, but just moments later, these windows were completely blown out, the frames blown out. Our front door is gone now, and that scene has been replicated throughout the city. I've spoken with people all over this town by phone, and they all say the same thing. This is an explosion the size of which many who have been through the civil war, through the 2006 Lebanon-Israel war, never have seen an explosion of this magnitude. The hospitals here in Beirut are overwhelmed with the injured. The Hotel Dieu tells us that they have accepted at least 400 injured, another hospital getting at least 60, and that's just 2 hospitals. The Lebanese Red Cross has called for all its ambulances in the entire country of Lebanon to come to Beirut immediately to help with taking the injured to get treatment. Eyewitnesses are telling me that they saw people being treated on the street, others being given CPR on the sidewalk. There is no part of this city where damage has not occurred. Is that this explosion has wreaked incredible damage throughout this city. The number of casualties and fatalities at this point is unclear, but it is going to be for sure significant in number.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Robin Kono, live from CNN World News headquarters here in Atlanta. So we begin with this breaking news out of Beirut, Lebanon, where the Prime Minister is pointing to a warehouse full of ammonium nitrate as the likely cause of this huge explosion. Just devastating images there out of Beirut. We know the blast killed at least 78 people and wounded more than 4,000 others. Both of those numbers are sure to rise as officials say many people are still missing. Well, the Prime Minister has declared a national day of mourning in the country and is promising a thorough investigation.
It felt like an earthquake, and it looked like a mushroom cloud. The explosion in Beirut Tuesday, so massive it shook the ground all the way to Cyprus, 150 miles away. The level of devastation is still being assessed, with widespread destruction stretching for miles from the epicenter near Beirut's port. Firefighters and emergency workers rushed to the scene, one that the city's governor, Marwan Aboud, described as resembling Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Local hospitals were immediately inundated with hundreds of victims, and the Lebanese Red Cross put out an urgent call for blood donations. The casualty count staggering. Thousands injured and dozens dead, with the number of dead surely to rise in the hours to come. Initially, the state news agency attributed the cause of the blast to a fire at a fireworks warehouse, but shortly afterwards, the head of Lebanese security said the explosion happened at the site of confiscated high-explosive materials. Lebanon's Prime Minister Hassan Diab later said it is unacceptable that a shipment of an estimated 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate was stored in a warehouse near the port for 6 years. That as the country launched an investigation into the cause, expecting an initial report in the coming days.
Hello again, this is the News Hour from Al Jazeera. Adrian Finnegan here in Doha. There's been a large explosion in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, within the last hour. Let's show you some latest pictures. It's clear that there was a massive explosion, as you can see. We're not quite sure yet as to what has caused this explosion, but if you can see the pictures of the neighborhood now in which this explosion happened, you can see that it's caused widespread damage. We have no information yet as to how many casualties there might have been. It's clear, though, that something has caused a very large explosion in Lebanon's capital within the last hour. Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodder is in Beirut and is on the line for us now. Zaina, you must have heard this explosion.
Not only heard it, Adrian, felt it. It shook the Lebanese capital. I have reported from this city for years, but never felt such a massive explosion. First, there was a thud, and then a gust of wind. Glass everywhere destroyed. I am seeing ambulances carrying wounded rushing to the hospital. There's chaos in the streets, but I was kilometers away. The glass broke everywhere around me.
It was a massive explosion. Another view from the bay. And from the streets.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It looks as if dozens are dead and several thousand injured. And a country already deep in crisis has been hit by a catastrophe.
I don't know what happened. I was fishing. I heard there was a fire. I turned and started to head home. I heard something explode. And then this happened.
This was the fire in Beirut port. The flashes, they say, were fireworks. Then something much bigger ignited.
Lebanon's interior minister told local media it was ammonium nitrate, which had been stored there since 2014. It can be used as fertilizer or to make explosives. This is downtown Beirut, close to the Parliament building. Since the end of last year, Lebanon has been paralyzed by a political and economic crisis and street demonstrations before the country was gripped by the pandemic. The damage has spread across the city. The shock will run much deeper, and this tragedy risks pushing the Lebanese further into despair. Hassan Diab, the Prime Minister, broadcast to the nation. He told them that those responsible would pay the price. Beirut's hospitals, already pressed hard by COVID-19, are faced with hundreds of casualties.
We were at home. We heard what sounded like fireworks. We thought it was a container in the port that was on fire. A few seconds later, we were flying through the air.
Breaking news this evening, there has been a huge explosion in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The blast happened in the port around 2 hours ago. It rocked the whole city. It shattered windows over a large area. Many people thought there'd been an earthquake, in fact. Hospitals are said to be overwhelmed by casualties. Some reports talking of as many as 500 people being injured. Firefighters are tackling numerous blazes, and eyewitnesses say that balconies collapsed. People were left trapped under the rubble. Government officials are saying a very high number of people have been injured, and it's feared there'll be a high death toll as well. A BBC producer in Beirut has been speaking of massive devastation at the port of Beirut, with bodies everywhere, shipping containers mashed and overturned. It isn't yet known what caused the explosion, which was felt across the city and could be heard for miles around. Well, these are live pictures now of the aftermath of those two separate explosions. Let's get this report now from our correspondent James Robbins.
A massive explosion sent shockwaves tearing through the Lebanese capital. The blast happened in the port area. It looks as if the first explosion was followed by another, much larger one, which swept through many nearby buildings.
This morning, drone footage revealed a crater where once Hangar 12 of the Beirut Port Authority had stood. The catastrophe killed an as yet unknown number and wrecked thousands of homes across the city. Politicians are vowing to pursue those responsible.
There has to be an investigation. We will ask for help. We have lots of friends abroad ready to help us, so that we can figure out what's happened with this explosion, which some are referring to as Hiroshima.
With the ammonium nitrate becoming increasingly unstable, after 6 years sitting in the hangar, anything could have touched it off. The white smoke and multiple small explosions seen before the catastrophe suggest it could indeed be fireworks. But when the huge stockpile of ammonium nitrate blows, it produced this distinctive red smoke. Detonating thousands of tons of explosive produced a seismic event, and the authorities are only now working out the full consequences.
All around is destruction. So the mission for search teams here is a mammoth one. We're with Russian specialists, the first international rescuers to reach the blast epicenter. The tragedy which shocked the world is being viewed up close by foreign eyes for the first time. They will Carry out this search for as long as it takes. The chances of finding anyone alive at this late stage are very slim, but they're not prepared to give up just yet. This is where thousands of tons of ammonium nitrate was hidden away in unsafe conditions for more than 6 years. The task ahead will be difficult and often dangerous for this team. On the other side, most of the grain silos were ripped apart by the blast. They've made a discovery. But the grim faces say it all. Only pieces of body, one tells us. It is a desperately bleak assignment for these Lebanese soldiers, and tough on the volunteer civil defence who are helping them. In the city's hospitals, where many are still veering between life and death and coping with horrendous injuries, the anger is most raw.
I'm